Hi there, welcome to Swedish Odds and Ends, the show where we learn a little bit about everything. Today we're going to talk about preservation, more specifically how to keep your produce from going bad by use of lactic fermentation. Won't you join me? As you can see, my Carolina Reaper plant has produced an abundance of fruit this year, more than I can possibly hope to use up within any form of reasonable time, so I'm going to have to preserve it. And I'm going to do this by submerging the fruit in a salty brine, which will produce an inhospitable environment for bad bacteria, bacteria that can make you ill or that can make the produce go bad, rot, or the like. Whereas it's the perfect growing ground for the Lactobacillus family of bacteria, which is what we want to use. Now, the lactobacteria is going to start to use up the carbohydrates of the fruit, and in doing so they're going to expel lactic acid and carbon dioxide. This will produce what's called an anaerobic environment, which makes it so that it's even harder for the bad bacteria to thrive, whereas the lactobacillus will do just fine. So we're going to start by cutting up our fruit so that the salt brine can reach all the parts of it without any form of challenge. And since we're dealing with super hots, I would definitely recommend gloves. I would do that with any chili because even the not so hot ones can irritate your skin if in prolonged contact with it. So let's glove up and start cutting. So, we'll start by taking off the stem of the fruit, and then I just halve the fruit. I try to keep as large pieces as possible in order to be able to weigh it down more effectively later. Also, I'm going to remove the pith and the seeds from inside the fruit. This is because they can tend to be a bit bitter when you use the fruit at a later stage, and also I'm going to be using the seeds to plant new Carolina Reaper plants for next season. If you don't intend to do that, then you can just discard the pith and the seeds and keep the good fruit. Now, if you'll see, this white fleshy bit here, that's what we call the pith. That tends to be a bit bitter, so we want to remove that. Also, make sure that anything that you place the fruits in, it has been thoroughly cleaned and preferably disinfected as well, but a thorough cleaning will do fine. You just don't want any bacteria, or as little as possible, to be in the vessels when you introduce the brine. Now, you might be wondering why I'm standing outside in the cold autumn evening. Since I mentioned this is the Carolina Reaper, the current world record holder for the spiciest chili in the world, it is potent. So even just opening up the fruits like this produces a very, very potent smell. It's a very delicious smell, very fruity, very aromatic, but it is powerful. I can feel the capsaicin in the air just by cutting the fruit like this. So doing it indoors would be doing the rest of the family a disservice. Now, let's speed up the process, shall we? undoubtedly happens when you absolutely cannot touch your skin with your hands, your nose itches. Now that we have cut up our fruit, we will move on to the discussion about the fermentation vessel. You don't need particularly much for this. You need some manner of a jar. I prefer using glass as opposed to plastic, so as to be sure it doesn't impart any form of plasticky taste. Apart from that, you need a tight sealing lid. In this case, I'm using the appropriate lid for this jar. It's both IKEA. The only custom part is that I have drilled a hole through the lid and mounted this airlock. What this does is it allows the carbon dioxide to exit the vessel, but it doesn't allow air back in, so as to keep potential bad bacteria out. You will also need some manner of weight to keep your produce underneath the water level. Any part of your produce that sticks up above the water level can still grow mold and that sort of thing, and we don't want that. I am using an espresso saucer, which I have drilled a hole through in order to let carbon dioxide through from the bottom so it doesn't create an air pocket underneath, because it fits very perfectly into the glass vessel that I aim to use. Now, moving on to the brine. What you need is some manner of salt which doesn't contain iodine, since iodine is an antibacterial agent, and you don't want any other foreign substances such as anti-caking agents or the like. What you want is as natural a salt as possible. I myself use Himalayan salt because that is simply natural salt straight up, nothing added to it. What you're aiming for is something in the vicinity of 3 to 5% saline solution. I myself aim for about 3.5%, and I say about because it's really not that critical. For me, I find that 3.5% is perfect flavor-wise, and it keeps a very good salinity in the water so as to keep the bad bacteria out. Now, as the television chefs say, in order to save some time, I have prepared some from earlier. So, this is a 3.5% or about 3.5% brine solution. I'll start by pouring the water in to it just about where it covers the fruit, and then I will add my weight on top and then top up the vessel with the rest of the saline solution. There. As you can see, the fruit has now started to rise from the bottom, meaning that it's time to add our weight. So with some care, place it on top of your produce, like so. And now agitate to make sure that we don't have any air pockets. Seems to be pretty alright. And then we will add the remainder of the brine, making sure that we leave a bit of headroom. We definitely don't want the water to reach the point up here where it reaches the tube, because then that will, the building pressure inside the vessel will increase the pressure so that it drives the fluid up the pipe, and we don't want that. Now what you're going to want to do is, for the first couple of days, you're going to want to agitate the vessel regularly so as to dislodge any air pockets that have then since moved as the produce has shifted in the jar. But once you have sealed up the jar, you want to keep it sealed as far as possible. There we are. Now our fruits are cut, our brine is added, and our vessel is sealed. What remains now is to place this in a moderately heated area. About 20 to 23 degrees Celsius is optimal. Higher than that and you risk the bacteria developing a very strange condition which makes it slimy and very unpleasant. Lower than that and you risk it slowing down to basically a crawl. Anyway, you will leave it in that temperate area for anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. You will see bubbles emerging among the fruit. That means that the fermentation process has started, and that is exactly what we want. So agitate the vessel every once in a while to dislodge these carbon dioxide bubbles, and you will see up here in the airlock that there is a positive pressure from inside the vessel. So long as there is, that means that the fermentation is continuing. Once you see that there are no more carbon dioxide bubbles forming, you can stop the whole thing by cooking the contents. So you have the option of either keeping the produce in the brine indefinitely, or, as I'm going to do, make a very delicious sauce from it. Because once you cook a sauce from it, adding a little bit of vinegar and some of the brine to the pulped up vegetables, in this case chili, that reduces the pH of the solution down to a very acidic level. Normally you count below 4.6 pH as shelf stable. With some vinegar in a solution like this, you usually end up around 3. That makes it perfect. It will basically survive forever as long as you keep it in a refrigerator. And that's a very good way to preserve your produce. So that concludes today's video about preserving your produce using lacto-fermentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Hospitable.